easier with this tip. All right.
Welcome, everybody. I'm not sure what issue this is, or what do you call it? What episode this is? 2 or 3? Something
4
like
or 5.
4 or 5. I think we're going to talk about some personalities. I think people are interested in that. And the
God
number
knows
one
we know a few.
personality that has crossed paths in both of our lives, because Kirk and I are the same age. Kirk Karwoski, you were his coach forever through all of his 6 world championships and 7 national championships. And what I always want to know about guys is like, oh man, what was he really like? Or tell me how hard he worked, or what happened when he missed a rep, or what about that day when he did 1,000 for 2? The inside scoop, what people really like, the intensity required, all that stuff. So I think let's start at the beginning with you and Kirk's relationship.
Well,
we
are both proudly hetero, and so we'll start off on there's no truth to the rumor that I found Kirk floating on the basket in the Potomac River when he was a baby.
No.
Raised
by wolves.
No, that we kept him out in the backyard, chained up, and made him drag around a 100-pound plate
like Conan. Fed him raw meat. So how old was he when you met him, and how did that come about?
Kirk was a young boy. First time I ever laid eyes on him had to have been at Joe Pavanelli's. We had a really good Joe was a little bit older. He was older than me, and I was older than most of the other guys. But Joe was a very successful plumber, and he had a training group in his basement, and it was some hard Prince George's County boys that later went on to national level.
Yeah.
Chip Ferry. Joe was 700 squat, 700 deadlift, 500 bench, 198. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Marshall Peck, 540 bench, 220. 785 squat. These are strong ass.
Yes. Yeah.
Young guys, right? And Joe Pavanelli. Joe would have been mid-40s, and Joe was tall. He was like 6'4". Still, he won the junior nationals one year. All right, so here were his lifts: 6'4", 275-pound class.
Okay.
I mean, he looked like a point guard for pros. I mean, he was that tall and lean. At 275, 6'4". He didn't scare anybody. He just looked like, hey, that's a nice looking taller fellow. 700 squat, right? 775 deadlift.
Wow.
285 bench.
Long ass arms.
Yeah.
But what? Anyway, he was still powerful in life because of his hips and his legs were
let me tell you something, man. When it came around at the deadlift, he was like the Maryland guys. He's like, just add it up. What do we need?
Yeah.
Because he'd always hit the last punch.
And back then, you're talking only one organization in that area. That's USPF, which USAPL, which is
that's
IP.
it, baby.
Yeah.
Run what you brung.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So Joe Pavanelli, how did he?
Yeah, Kirk.
He was the guy.
Joe had kids that were Kirk's age.
Okay.
And they were kind of lifters. Joe's kids never became really good lifters, but I think Kirk was somehow, in the same high school or something, or like that, So Kirk wandered over, and Kirk was a strong high school boy. He was a 200-pound high schooler, 5'8", maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe 5'8", and had a what? Did he hit 400 in the bench? I think he had a 400 bench, right?
So when he was
probably 250 overhead press, that kind of strength. Yeah, but it was terrible technique. I mean,
he was just muscling. But
just muscling shit up.
Paul Anderson didn't have great technique either, if you remember. Remember his rack? His pipe was so big. Paul
Yeah,
Anderson was holding the rack like this. So on Kirk's DVD, first came out on VHS. I got it on VHS
right,
first. From cadet to captain, he has films of lifting in his high school gym at some competition.
right, right.
And he benches 4.
Yep.
It was,
Deadlift 6, something
yeah, it
like
was like,
that.
yeah, squat 6 or
Squats,
6 foot, something like,
something, yeah, something
yeah,
like that, right.
yeah. And
Great high school lifting.
dude, the little bench uprights that are this close.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Anyway,
So I probably ran into him in about that time. Now, again, he was just a kid training with the grown men.
right.
And pretty much those guys were our weight changers. That's why they got allowed to hang around and train with us, because they would change the plate. So they, you know what I mean?
I
They
think
were
it's important.
they
It's
were
like
apprentices.
you have to
Yeah.
earn it. You have to earn it.
Well, yeah, especially when you're training with serious guys
Yeah.
with 700 squats and deadlifts clean. I mean, and it's like you're nobody. I mean, he
Yeah, well,
might have had a 500 squat, maybe.
I think it's great to do that. I think it's great to it's
Now
like
we
they don't
got
understand what it takes until they see what it takes. And you guys had to see what it takes. You know what I mean? From mentors, and I think it's important.
well, also
Like
the
club
whole
thing.
the whole power lift basement scene.
Yeah.
I mean, with powerlifting classically was done in basements and garages and at private homes.
Yeah.
Right.
I
There
remember
wasn't.
I emailed you years ago and we talked about pockets of strength in the
Yep.
country.
Yep.
Texas with the Young Brothers, Cleveland with the
Well,
Black,
different regions of
Maryland.
Texas, different regions of Texas, right?
Really?
You'd have like, oh yeah,
Okay.
you'd have like the South Texas, which would be like Doug Young, the border guys, and that would
Yeah.
be different than the Dallas guys, which, the difference between Brownstown and Dallas. I mean, that's like, from where you live to where I live.
Right.
So that's like, and you're still in Texas, right?
Right. Oh, I know.
But different regions of Texas, different regions of Pennsylvania, or different regions of
Yes.
Ohio. The guys up in Sandusky and Cleveland,
Mm.
that was John Black and Florio and Bob Fortenbaugh. And then in Dayton, you had Larry Pacifico, you had Jim Cash, world champion. That was different than the Columbus scene, so yeah, you have these different pockets of strength, but there would always be like power players that the lesser lifters would
Right.
cluster around.
And all this
Right.
is done for the love of it. It's all for the love of strength.
Uh,
It's guys that are working
well,
construction and working
yeah,
and yeah, and it's 5:30 and instead of going home, you're freaking coming in your combat boots and jeans on bench day. And the other days, it's just because there's no it's just for the love.
always a weekend.
Okay, how did that work out? Okay, well, I
Well,
don't mean to get off. I'm getting way off it.
there would always be a weekend day. The second time I saw Kirk was
Okay.
probably 3 or 4 years later, and I mean we were over to Joe's, a year or two, and then Marshall built his first house, this piece of property. He was out there. He was out in
Really?
Chesapeake, out there past Bowie, almost down by the Chesapeake,
Yeah.
down
Anne
in that area.
Arundel. Mhm.
Yeah, Anne Arundel County, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And he had a nice setup, a big glass, wall basement, which he had the platform. And that's when the Baltimore gangsters came over. That was Jeff and what was his name? Frank, and
You mean
they'd
like
show up.
biker gangsters or bikers or organized gangsters? Like crime, like what kind of gangsters?
Gangsters that eventually had to go into witness protection.
Okay. Okay. True Baltimore dudes from the old days.
Yeah, Baltimore dudes. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
And they would, and Jeff always had a brand new Lincoln Continental.
That's man. That's great. I love it.
And he owned a liquor store, which he paid cash for.
Of course.
And and at 275, oh, he looked better than this kid that they have playing Hercules in the movies, or Thor. You know the guy they have playing
Yeah.
Thor?
Mhm.
That's what Jeff looked like. Jeff was 6 foot 275 with the 35-inch waist and 550 double in the bench raw and 800 squat, 800 deadlift. Oh, he was national. It was him at the time. It was him, Dave Passanella, and my guy Danny up in Ken Fantano's gym. They were.
Wobler. Mm-hmm.
Oh well, no, Danny. I'm talking about. This would be junior national level.
Yeah,
right?
Danny.
Not the
Danny
senior.
Wobbler.
Danny was senior national.
Got
Danny
it.
was Danny and Chalet and those guys. That's senior national.
Okay.
But at junior national level, it was Dave Passanella who was coming onto the scene. It was Jeff and who's the third guy at the time? Anyway, those guys trained. Kirk came over, and again, he was the youngest guy. And again, he was kind of sort of the weight changer. And one of the Baltimore guys, who shall remain nameless, did not like Kirk. And he essentially said, listen, Marshall, I'm not going to say anything because it's where you live, but I really don't like that kid, and I think we should kick him out.
Because he was cocky?
Kirk was smirky, Yeah, he was cocky. Listen, outside this little gathering, oh, yeah, he was cocky. Now, when he was in this little gathering, he minded his P's and Q's.
Right.
I mean, these guys had to put pistols on shelves when they came in, right?
Love it. Mm-hmm.
Right. So, but Marshall said, Marshall was a hillbilly criminal. He said, no, he's my boy. Kirk was working for Marshall as a painter.
Okay.
In the old days when they used brushes and stuff, before they had the sprays even. So that was Kirk's job, and Kirk was trying to push his weight up. And Schultz said, he said, he always called me Doc. He said, Doc, you should have seen him today. He called him the kid. He said, the kid was up in the light.
Back up just a second. Did the guy
this is Marshall talking, and he's telling me about Kirk at work. Right. Kirk's working for him. So he's talking to me, and he goes, and he called me Doc. Marshall called me Doc. He said, Doc, you should have seen the kid today. He was up in the ladder. He said he was just sitting there and painting. He said his whole belly took up an entire rung, hung through. He said it was disgusting. It was disgusting. You should have seen it. He was drinking like 5 quarts of milk a day, right?
Pushing his body weight up.
Oh, yeah, baby. Oh, yeah. And then hit the buffet twice. You'd hit the buffet at lunch, and then you come back when they changed it out for dinner.
Did he decide on his own, or you'd all told him you better put some weight on?
Well, Mark, no, he knew. See, when he was in high school, he was 200. And then he played a little bit of junior college football.
Yeah,
right.
We played against each other. Yeah.
And he, I think, was maybe 220 then.
Yeah.
Right. Now he pushed his weight up to 242, but Kirk was always so very bottom heavy. Yeah. So even though he had his lower body was definitely 242, but his upper body was like, 181, 198. You know what I mean? It's just looked like two different people.
Yeah.
So and he was conscious of that, and he didn't like it. But getting back to the Bob Luch thing is so Marshall made like Solomon and he says, I have a solution. He says, puts his hand on Kirk's shoulders. He said, kid, if you can squat 510 within a month, you can stay.
And he's like 17, 18 years old.
I'd say he's like 18, 19. Okay. He's out of high school, but he's working. He's still living at home, living in the basement, working for Marshall, doing the painting thing, and you know what I mean. And he did it. Right. He stepped up and so the Baltimore boys backed off and they said, all right, you can stay. He said, but just don't make
Yeah.
eye contact with us.
Yeah. Don't look at David Letterman as he walks down the hallway.
don't, don't look at us directly in the face, and we'll be
Yeah.
all right. So anyway, and so
No eye contact.
yeah. So then Marshall, I don't know, some situation. Oh, but then he moved again, right? He got divorced, and then he moved further, like down to Waldorf,
Okay.
right? Back down to hardcore hillbillyville, right?
Used to be.
So
Sure.
that, yeah, used to be. Probably now it's all gentrified, right? $1 million homes on the water. And anyway,
Yeah.
so Marshall, so then Chalet's Jim showed up
Okay.
in like 1980.
In Landover.
Marlow Heights.
Marlow Heights. Okay.
Okay, right there. Oxon Hill.
Yeah.
Right there. So we all reconvened. Marshall and I had been training and Joe Ferry and a bunch of other guys. We had been training at Hughes. So we have Cassidy's, and then Kirk was somewhere, I forget where. And then when Chalet's opened up, I believe in 1980, that's when everyone clustered there, and we started again. And that's when Kirk actually approached me, and he said, "Hey, would you consider coaching me?" He said, "I want to go national." Kirk was a successful boy prodigy in the ADFPA, the American Drug Free Powerlifting Association,
right?
Which at the time was very minor league, right? At best, AA ball, right? And the USPF was the NFL.
Yeah.
And there was that much difference. I mean, it was.
Yeah, of course.
So Kirk wanted to play in the NFL, but he wasn't ready. He knew that. So he had me out. So I was handling a guy named Elliot Smith, and Elliot was I didn't have time for Kirk because I was working with Mark. Mark was still competitive, and I was working with Elliot. Elliot was a monster. Tony Fitton, who was Kaz's guru, told me, he said, Elliot Smith has better genetics than Kaz. Right.
Wow.
Yeah, but Elliot was torn. He had football and lifting, and he was one of these guys, pro wrestling was, always things lurking that he could do, and those he could make money at, and there was no money in lifting, and blah blah blah. And eventually, and then he got an injury, some sort of a back or something. Anyways, there's a lot of conflict. So he kind of dropped out at the time. So I told Kirk, I said, "Yeah," I said, "I'll work with you, but you got it." He was wild. I had seen him lift.
What do you mean, wild?
Oh, his squats were they were
inconsistent.
That's an understatement. They were worse than inconsistent. They were scary. Because it was all wild. We would take it out of the rack and stumble backwards and set up and scream, and then go down, and every depth was different, and sometimes he'd fall and go over backwards and go forwards. I saw him get flipped over one time. I've never seen it before since. He literally got flipped over because he went down so fast. And his feet went over his head. I mean, with like 800, he could have snapped his damn neck,
Yeah.
Oh, it was crazy. And I said, and he was so disproportional. It was like, well, I guess, we can get a world record squat, but, past that. And again, and I think he would have to agree, he was just like two different dudes. He was well shaped and looked good up top. I mean, he was a 400 bencher, but it just his bottom
didn't have the muscle mass to match.
Oh, his glutes, his thighs, you could set a beer can on his ass.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? He was just packing. And
so you broke him down. What'd you do? Break him down?
Well, first he agreed.
That's half the
You know,
battle right there.
that's the first thing is he said, yeah, I'm down with it. And he says, I want to, and he said, I want to center my life around this. I said, okay, it sounds good. And he got a good break. He got a good union job that he worked for 10 years. He was a union offset printer.
Yeah.
And back then they had, printing stuff and they had print shops, and imagine that. And guys had stood next to machines that broke down, and
Yeah.
guys brought sheets of paper to the machines, and they did newspapers, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it was a whole damn industry that just disappeared in a
Sure it
heartbeat.
was. Yeah.
Right. That, and also remember when you used to have your cameras used to take film.
Yeah. Real cameras.
Yeah, Rich film. How'd you like to be in the film business? Gone, right? No more film. We don't need that anymore. That
Yeah.
was with Kirk's, but for 10 years.
Okay. So he knew where
He
he was
stayed in
going
the
every day,
pocket.
didn't have to look for work, all
He
that.
got a nice little I think it was a one bedroom apartment in Crofton.
Yeah.
Nice. It was a nice little place, right? But he had the union job, and he got married young. That lasted a couple, maybe 3 or 4 years, I think. But that's when he settled in, and he got into the groove. And it was rough going at first because he did not transition easily to the big leagues. He had to get slapped around. I mean, you show up to your first competition and you got, well, in your class, you got, Willie Bell, Dave Jacoby, Thor Kritsky, you
Right.
know what I mean?
Yep.
And you're the new kid in the block. I will tell you this. Now, I had worked with Chalet for years by this point at the national level and international level. I've worked with Ed Cohn, so I was known. So the first meet that Kirk showed up at the lift in, I was with Ed, and Kirk came walking in. I said, Ed, this is this new kid I'm working with. His name's Kirk Karwoski. And Ed's like, whatever. And then he goes, look at the legs in this kid. It's the first words out of his mouth. I said, yeah. And that was it. That's the first words that
What
he ever said.
what was the train? Do you remember the training split that you
Oh,
got?
yeah. Oh, yeah. I got a mentat mind when it comes to that stuff. Yeah, we started them. We had to tighten them up, so we started them with pause squats.
So Monday would be squats?
Well, that was determined by him. His schedule was such that I think if he worked half a day on Saturday, he got off extra time. He got off all day Monday. I think that's
Okay.
So he'd work half a day Saturday. He'd be off all day Sunday, all day Monday. So Monday was squat day.
Yeah.
All serious lifters, that you always start your training week with legs. Period.
We had that weekend recovery.
Period. Always. You're not a lifter if you don't start your week with legs. So you start your week with legs, and then he'd come in midweek and hit his benches.
Yeah.
And he liked inclines. So he would do heavy braced inclines, and Bobby Myers would be there spotting him.
Yeah, he wasn't doing like shoulder stuff, presses and all that.
He did incline. He did flat
No,
bench.
incline, I mean, but he didn't do like standing press.
No,
I said to him one
that
time,
was his standing press.
I said, and it was a pretty steep angle, so he was getting tons of deltoid there. I said, what do you do for your shoulders, man? He said, well, I do incline. Yeah. And he goes, and I go back in the room and I do these thingies. And there's a lateral machine at Mac, you remember, in the little room? And he didn't even know what the freak it was called.
Yeah,
And he's got
yeah,
these things.
these things.
And I said, what
Yeah.
about push downs and nose breakers? He goes, I'm too strong, man. And he wasn't bragging. He goes, it crushes everything crushes my elbows because I got to put some weight on.
Yeah.
So we did close grips. He did close grips for his triceps, which is a fantastic tricep exercise.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. If you have to pick one, because that's the heaviest tricep exercise.
Yeah, exactly.
He would also, at his peak, at his prime, Stacy and I would like walk into Mac, and it might be an off day. So he might, his arm workout. He's got gigantic arms, right? And his arm workout was like 3 sets of biceps a week,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
you'd walk in and he'd be like doing alternate dumbbell curls. You go, "Hey, Stacy," right? He's got hundreds, right?
Yeah. He went heavy on those. Yeah.
Right. And he's just like, "Hey, how you guys doing?" I said, "Damn,
Yeah.
that's a
That's the
lot
day
of
he
weight,
close grip.
man."
That's the day he close gripped also, I think.
Yeah. I think he also, anyway. So at Chalet's is where we took off, and he got a little bit of heat because we had him. He was concentrating on 5 rep sets.
Okay.
Because the 5 rep set both. Well, Cassidy, that was his thing, the 5 rep set. The 5 rep set was John McCollum's thing. And then when I finally met Ed Cohn and Doug Furness, I said, "Hey, so what do you guys train on?" They go, "Well, we love the 5 rep set."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Okay." We got a consensus, and we hadn't known, nobody talked to each other about it. Everybody, all these pockets arrived at it on their own.
Yeah. And Bill Starr, same way. Bill Starr, 5x5. Yep.
And Ed told me he had the best explanation. He said the 5 is the best combination between the hypertrophy of the high reps and the strength of the low reps. He says also it's the ideal position to jump either direction, right? You need to lean out, kick the reps up, tighten up the diet. You will need to peak the strength, lower the reps, kick up the eating, so made sense. So, well, that wasn't thought too favorably at Mark's gym, because Mark was the singles gym. That's what they did.
Oh.
Single reps. And Kirk was steadfast. We would create these programs based around these 5 rep sets, and he would do them, and too much derision, but he didn't care. He was a hard head, and he just powered through.
Yeah.
And he was also he had a demonstrative personality and a demonstrative psyche.
He was into it, to put it mildly.
He was a showman, but for real. It wasn't
Right.
FAUX. It wasn't pretend. It wasn't WWE. It was oh no, he got psycho crazy.
So when you took him down, go back up just a little bit.
Yeah.
When you took him down to his pauses.
Yep.
So let's say he's a 700-pound squatter at the time.
He was doing 8.
Okay, he's 800-pound squatter, but you weren't.
Yep.
It wasn't consistent. So when you broke him down to pauses, how did you work that?
And his 800 would have been 2 inches high.
That's because it was in that other organization.
Correct.
Now he's up in the big leagues.
Correct.
So you had to get it down.
Yep.
So tell me about the pauses. Tell me about how that.
Well, we had to work that for an entire cycle, right?
Wow. So 12 weeks of pauses.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, coming from where he's undoing a lifetime of bad habits.
You had to reset that depth level.
Yeah. And the same in the bench. We had to teach him, like, you gotta arc it, the Cassidy's approach and precision. And Kirk really got behind no one had really explained to him the idea of there are archetypical techniques, there are signature techniques, there are pristine techniques. And if you do these techniques, you'll lift more.
Yes.
And he's like, oh,
really? I just don't put it on my back and go down.
Really? And Kirk is a good coach and a good trainer, and he's always been a good scientist. He's into it.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm not going to say he's studied the magazines or anything like that, but he was empirical. He was very attuned to himself.
Well, he didn't need to study. He had you guys around him.
Yeah, and we that's right.
That's the quickest education. Oh my gosh, man, he was so freaking lucky. That's like
I was definitely his Dr. Frankenstein.
Yeah,
Dr. Frankenstein.
Yeah. So anyway, so he did the pauses. So he broke down the weight.
And on the bench, same thing. Slowed him down, widened him out. He's and let's get the pause is the gold standard, not the touch and go. Come on, Let's see. So look how much I can, I can do 405 for 5 touch it. Yeah, well, you can only do 2 paused.
Makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
You know what's funny though? When you do start to pause your reps, you get more comfortable with the pause than you do the touch and go. And I would pause
That's a
all the
mature lift.
time,
That's a mature lifter, though.
unless I had to do like sets of 8 or something, which was very rare. But 6 and under, everything was paused, and I felt a lot more comfortable. It feels weird when you're doing, yeah. I was stronger with a pause eventually. When I tell people
Eventually,
that's hard for
yeah.
them to believe because it's
Well,
an ego thing right away.
no, it's also easier to rebound because you're rebounding, you're
Yeah.
rebounding, you're rebounding,
Yep.
and up to a certain strength level,
Yeah.
a certain poundage level, that works to your advantage because you can really get some.
Yeah.
And but the problem is that it eliminates you, the athlete, becoming strong in that zone of the rebound
Yeah.
because you have nothing there. You haven't fought through there. Now we make you stop.
Yeah.
And now you got to push through that zone that you
Yeah.
bounced through before. Oh, damn. There's a whole new avenue of progress.
And when you have that heavy weight on, as you progress, finding the right spot. So when you have 500 on, a less than a millimeter forward or back,
Yep.
you're going to
Yep.
lose it. The
That's
pause
right.
enables you to stay in your groove. Yeah.
Also, the controlled negative.
Control,
We never
perfect
crashed
spot.
crashed the negative. No,
Right.
the hell with that.
Yeah.
We want first off, we want the strength and power that comes with the controlled negative.
Yeah.
Secondly, we want the precision because that's the way. The perfect negative is the prequel to the perfect concentric.
Right.
Perfect, right? Whatever it is. Now, Kirk's worse. Kirk was, Kirk was when we got him, he was like a 4 1/4 bencher, kind of.
Right.
You know what I mean? And he's a chubby 242er,
Okay.
right? And deadlift, I don't know, 620, and
Sumo.
not, no,
He had
conventional.
switched by then because I know when he did the 80 FPA.
Yeah, no,
Sumo.
he was confused. He was always a confused deadlifter. I've said this before. The biggest coaching mistake of my life is not forcing him to do sumo.
He said his hands were too small.
Oh, what the hell? If you, okay, all right, Kirk. All right, Kirk. Let me explain it to you again. If you have small hands, the further out you put them on the bar, the harder it is to grip the bar. Okay. And your damn legs are so big that when you set your hands outside the bar, they got to be this far apart. So just put them out another 3 inches. You have the strongest legs
Put
in
your
the
hands
sport.
inside. Yeah.
Just put your hands inside. Also, Kirk, it would lengthen, it would make your rep stroke shorter.
Shorter. Yeah.
If you widen your stance successfully and harness those incredible legs, instead he did kind of a half leg, half back. Well, his back is not his legs. We needed to harness all that 1,000 pound for a double leg power.
Yeah.
And I should have forced him to use straps, but no, I didn't. That was a
I
mistake.
hate straps, man.
Of course he is. To him, putting on a set of straps is like trying to do a Rubik's Cube in each hand. Okay.
You mean because of to figure it out? You mean to figure
Yeah.
like I don't want to fuck. I
Strap.
don't want to mess with it. Yeah.
He's like the Frankenstein monster on fire, right? With straps. I said, Kirk, this is not difficult.
You
Too.
felt like you could overload him better with that because he
Well,
had
of
a grip.
course.
He had a grip.
Yeah, grip always curtailed his sets, right?
Yeah.
And
He did
so
820. He did 820 in the gym.
825.
825.
800 for a triple.
What about if he had big ass hands, dude? The sky is the limit.
Well, or if he had a way stronger back and a way stronger and a sumo deadlift.
So he'd go 900.
See, here's what we've discovered with Kirk on the deadlift is that, see, I worked with Chalet. Chalet was the total opposite. Chalet was a natural deadlifter with huge hands. Mark could sit there, he could struggle with a damn deadlift till the cows came home. I stood next to Louis Simmons one time in Hawaii. We're watching Mark pull 864 world record. Now, this was the APF, first APF World Championships.
Okay.
World Championships held in Maui.
Got it.
At the convention center on the beach. And so we're there and we're watching Mark, who I'm coaching, pull 860 for APF world record. And Simmons, and I mean, it's slow as death. And Simmons is standing next to me. He goes, "Oh," he says, "you can tell that guy pulls a lot of singles." I went, "Yeah." And
That's all he pulls.
I said, "Yeah, but he just beat your guy by 100 pounds."
Well, he was complimenting him, wasn't he?
No, he was
Oh,
being dismissive. "Oh, you can tell that
oh,
guy
I
pulls
see.
a lot of singles because he's slow, right?" And I said, "Well, yeah, well, he just beat your fast pulling guy by 100 pounds. You don't get any bonus points for pulling it faster."
As long as you lock it out.
No,
Long as you,
Chalet's a smart one. It's just you can't. They're trying to apply horsepower to torque.
Hmm.
Powerlifting's torque. It's not horsepower. Olympic lifting's horsepower.
Hmm.
Olympic lifting is you want a Mercedes AMG with 680 horsepower to go 200 miles an hour on the Autobahn. You don't want that to pull a tree stump out of your lawn. You want a dually pickup truck with
Right.
700 pounds of foot torque.
Got
Torque
it.
is different than horsepower.
Got it.
And all these guys, like, anyway, you know who, "Oh, you need speed." No, you don't. Not in powerlifting.
Right. You're still
Now,
trying to use compensatory acceleration, but you're not using light weights and moving it fast.
we're doing our torque as fast as possible,
Exactly. Right.
but
You're just not
it's
doing it with
torque.
low percentages.
And we're not certainly not crashing our negatives and
Right.
throwing away that benefit.
Right. So
No,
go back to
and
the
we want to
deadlift.
dissipate. So
So
Kirk,
what'd you feel? You said I figured out something about Kirk's deadlift.
yeah, I figured it out. Is you said, "Kirk, we're approaching this thing all wrong," because he was, trying to push up his fives, because that's classical. "Hey, get your five up." And he said, "No." He said, "Look, you can't afford to struggle. You don't have even 3 seconds to pull a deadlift.
Because of his hand size.
You have to pull a deadlift in 1.5 seconds or less. We have to cut the amount of time it takes for you to get it to the top."
Opposite of Chalet, who had the mitts, had the bear mitts. Yep.
So how do we do that? Well, we got to back up, because you'll never learn that with grind poundage. So, now we're going to apply speed to torque. You got to get into that torque position to start the deadlift. You got to do that Chalet image of,
Yep.
you got to hit like that, holding the rocket down, hold it down, and the
Oh,
rocket
yeah.
building up, building up, building up, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
and Chalet said, "Yeah, I'd put about 200 pounds upward pressure on an 800-pound bar, and then hit it right with
Yeah.
the nitrous oxide, bang, right."
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, that's it. Well, with Kirk, he was taking too long to pull his deadlifts, and anytime he struggled in the slightest, bing, there it went. Says, "We got to pull faster. You don't have that much time." So that's what we did. We backed up. Let's say at the time his best dead was 650.
Yeah.
Well, we had to get fast with 585 and then work it up from there.
Yeah.
Right. And we couldn't lose the speed, because if we lost the speed, you'll never see Kirk grind.
It was his grip.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, Kirk's the same way on his squats and his benches. He doesn't grind.
Yeah, but that also has a lot to do with the
well,
program.
yeah.
He knows what he has in each week, right?
No, it's that he never grinds. He's wired himself for what you call a compensatory acceleration. That was Fred's term. And it's not be explosive. It's move a poundage as fast as possible over every inch of the range of motion.
Right.
Great. I agree with that. But we're in torque world.
Yeah.
And you have to understand that.
Yeah. And you just can't do it super lightweight. You have to have enough weight on you or off the ground.
If we're in Olympic lifting, I don't want you, if
acceptable.
we're doing Olympic lifting, I don't want you to use torque tactics, because then you're just gooning the weight up.
Well, you can't do it.
Well, yes, you can.
I mean, it's tough.
You can be like Paul
really
Anderson. No, you can be like Paul Anderson.
Oh, I never did. He was torquing it.
Oh, he was just did like his clean was an upright
Brutally
row.
strong.
His clean was an upright row with a reverse curl.
Yeah. And then what
Right.
the Russians call him, the
Wonder of nature.
wonder of nature.
Right.
Dude, how about when we had Americans
Chiroti,
that were the wonder of natures?
Chiroti. We've had them. I mean, you look at somebody like this Brian Shaw kid, he's gigantic. Anyway, so getting back to
It was
Kirk,
just more of a mythical thing back then. Go ahead.
uh, it took him, he bombed out at one senior nationals, depth in the squad. And he's a bit of a hardhead when it comes to, he had to open with the junior world record.
That's what he
He
wanted.
was, he was unshakable. I would not recommend that.
Right,
If
right,
I was his coach,
right.
but on this, he was like, now this I'm doing. Okay, well, all right. So 1 year he bombed out. Then the next year we came back. Oh, and then after he bombed out, he was going to go down and murder the judges. And his wife called me, said, "You got to get up here.
Yeah.
He's going crazy. He's wrecking the hotel room. He's going to go down. He's going to
Oh,
murder
yeah.
the judges." And he said, so I went up. Kirk talks about the story. I said, so I walked in. I didn't know how to, you got to use elemental child psychology, right? So I went, "I'll help you. But first, let's have a drink."
Yeah.
And one drink led to 10.
And then
And
you
then,
started
then
talking.
the
Yeah.
doing turned into talking, and
Planning. Yeah.
then fell asleep in the bed.
Yeah. Man, you know what? I bet you love this too. After the meet, designing your next cycle. I couldn't wait
Yep.
to think about my next training cycle. I'm gonna do
Yep.
this different, but
Yep.
I'm gonna set
Yep.
this
Yep.
up.
Yep.
I'd be in
Yep.
the fucking
Yep.
freaking. I'd get done with the last attempt, and I'd be like,
Yep.
"Can't wait."
Yep.
Now, what is that?
Yep.
That's strange, right? I really love that.
It's a structure. It's like
Yeah,
for us, it's this equivalent of like designing the next custom car that you build from the, everything, the
yeah. You
frame,
sold
everything
that
you put
one.
in.
You sold that one. Now you're ready
Yeah.
to build another one. Yeah.
Right. Right. Right.
God, it's
And
such a
and
great
and
sport, man. I wish you
and
could do it more.
you know your mistakes and your
Right,
shortcomings and what can be adjusted to elicit more progress.
right, right. Yeah. So go
So
ahead.
I was lucky. Kirk came up quick once he figured out, this was the NFL and he had to take his game to the next level. He got some good help from Anthony DeRizzo.
Okay, can we touch on that real quick? So
Sure.
that was a diet help, but he also got help from your buddy in Connecticut with the bench.
Yeah. Oh, Kenny Fantano. Yeah.
Fantano bench.
Square. Yeah. I took Kirk up to see Ken, and Ken showed Kirk his super scientific way of benching, and Kirk took to it.
Which we all do now. Which we all do that.
Wow, it took me a long time to make it feel natural, but Kirk was
Takes
just like,
forever. But
yeah,
once it does, that short stroke and the tension you build up, you would
yep.
and keeping your elbows in, you'd never change it. Never.
And also the results you get from benching that way.
Yeah.
You just get bigger and stronger, more muscle, more everything.
Yeah.
So Kirk took to it immediately. So he got the new bench technique. And DeRizzo helped him in both the nutritional and the pharmaceutical.
Yeah.
Right. And Kirk would have been a very, very pure young boy. And now he took off. And it all came together. And we actually won our first national championships as super heavyweight.
Okay.
He won as a super. We were going to have a big battle with a guy named Calvin Smith. Calvin was the two-time defending national champion in the 275-pound class. He placed at the Worlds. He had won, but second, third, fourth, something like that at the Worlds. Tough, good lifter. And that's who we were going up against. So we got there. I can't remember what year, early 90s. And my friend Mike Hall, the defending superweight national champion from Delaware, he pulled an injury and dropped out at the last moment. So I looked it down the list. I said, Kirk, you have a better chance of beating these other supers than you do Calvin.
Right.
I said, what do you think about it? Let's go up. He goes, sounds good to me. So he had like 30, I think in 36 hours, he put on 10 pounds, you know,
Right.
it was a wonderful, wonderful thing. And then he won.
Is this the one where he said, if I don't get this squat, I'm gonna
No,
never lift
no, no,
again?
no, 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 no. That happened on his rise. That was like
On his way up.
After the meet that he bombed out in,
Right.
he came back the next year. And again, I'm doing this from memory. First squat,
Yep. Depth.
3 red lights.
Yep.
He's still a 242er also. 800, junior world record. Second squat, 2 red lights.
Right.
Third squat, comes to me. We're backstage. And he looks at me just so serious. And he goes, if I miss this attempt, I quit powerlifting. I'm like, I hear you.
Whatever you need to get you going. Let's go.
Well, I got him going, because then as we walked out to the chalk box. And this is the national championships, and the place was packed. And in the front row of the national championships were Doug Furness and Ed Cohn, the 2 greatest lifters in the world, sitting side by side. And Kirk's chalk in his hands, and for whatever reason, Doug and Ed, somebody said something funny, so they started laughing. So I jabbed Kirk with my elbow, and I looked. He got his attention. He looked at me. I said, look at the front row. I said, Ed and Doug are laughing at you. Right?
Yeah.
Kirk looked over. His eyes got this big, man.
Yeah.
Now he's already a psycho.
Right.
Now he was floating off the ground. He was jiggling, right? He was vibrating. He was so psyched. He went out. Mike Lambert was the editor of Powerlifting USA. He's seen everything. He said, it was the single hardest attempt I'd ever seen in my life. It took like 25 seconds for him to finish this thing. As soon as he finished it and racked it, he fell down.
Collapsed. But wait, didn't Lambert
wait.
Go ahead.
Two white lights.
And a red, so he gets it.
Yeah.
Didn't Lambert say that if a gnat landed on the bar, he would have missed it?
I said that.
You said that.
Okay. I said that if a mosquito landed on the bar, he would have collapsed.
Dude, you know what's funny? You know what's funny?
Fly.
Whenever you have one of those reps, those really excruciating reps, people don't understand. That's like running like 2 miles straight up.
Yeah.
You know? And you think it's just one rep. It takes everything out of you, everything that you have.
Yeah. And
why, man, people quit on reps all the time. You got a lot more than you think. Get that damn thing,
yes,
man.
You do. Yes, you do.
Yes.
So that was a turning point, but he was still, and so then he pushed his weight up to 275. He got big. We won the super heavyweights, but then he went back down to 275. And then after he won as a super heavyweight, Calvin Smith called him, because Calvin won at 275, Kirk won at super. So now they both went to the world championships.
Okay.
I believe they were in Norway or Finland. I can't remember. I think it might have been Finland. Maybe it was Norway. This would have been, I think, in 1990. So they're getting ready for the Worlds. Calvin called Kirk. He said, I'm having a hell of a time making weight. Can we switch weight classes? So in other words, at the Worlds, you lifted 275, I've lifted super. So Kirk said, yeah, I'll do that. So Kirk went and he lost to Vilmi by 2.5 kilos, 5.5 pounds. I did not make that trip.
That was his first Worlds.
It was his first Worlds. I kicked myself in the ass afterwards. I said, listen, man.
Yeah.
If I'd have made that trip, I certainly would have been worth 5 pounds.
Yeah. No question. A coach is worth it.
So then the next year in Örebro, Sweden, I went. I said, Sean, I want to be a coach for the U.S. So that year I was appointed coach for the U.S. It was myself, Bob Fortenbaugh, Sean Scully. And we went to Örebro, and Kirk won his first Worlds easily.
At 275.
So, and 275, and that was the start. Kirk had a period, I think it was about 3 years into his career, and he called me. He was getting ready to prepare for the nationals. I said, I'm stuck at 255 pounds. I can't get my weight up. He said, I'm eating everything in sight. He said, I'm stressed out. He was going through a divorce.
Got it.
So I had a flash of insight. I said, well, let's lift to 242.
Break Cook's record.
I said, I don't know. We didn't know. I mean, we didn't know that we were going to do all that. We just said, why don't we lift at 42? And Kirk was like, ooh, that would
Yeah, he
shake
got all
everybody up.
diced up, man. He looked
He
great.
did. That was when he got great, because when he went down to 242, he squatted 909. He broke
914.
94. Yeah, broke Danny Wobler's world record that had stood for like 10 years. Dan had squatted 876. And so Kirk shattered that record, which had stood forever. And
Cook's total that he beat, or Cook's squat?
he had John Cook totaled 2204
Okay.
in 1980. Now this is 1991,
Damn,
maybe
Cook was a strong son
1992.
of a bitch, man. John
Oh, incredible considering how tall he was. The
truck
guy
driver.
was 6'1", squatted 832 below parallel,
Yeah, well, you had to. Yeah.
benched 500 and deadlifted 870.
Truck driver, right? Truck driver.
No, he worked in a bakery and he worked in a donut shop
Okay. All right.
in
Pennsylvania somewhere.
he was up by Wilkes-Barre, Scranton area.
Tough area.
Oh yeah, man, that's where my father was from. So anyway, getting back to Kirk. So Kirk went down to 242. Then when he went back up to 275, he listened hard to Anthony DeRizzo, and when he went back up, he didn't get fat again. He took his time and he muscled up. He maintained, I won't say he maintained every bit of the leanness he got. When he went to 42, he probably was about, I'm thinking like 8%. I mean, he was
diced.
He was super, and it was artificially low. I mean, he really had to fight to get down there.
Yeah.
And he made it, but he naturally, when he swole back up that time, he got big again, eating clean instead of eating. Kirk's idea of dieting when he was at 275 is he would cut down from 4 7-Eleven big bites with extra nacho cheese to 2 7-Eleven big bites with extra nacho cheese, right?
Yeah.
And Anthony DeRizzo was like, okay, hold on there a minute.
Yeah. I remember
how about we switch you out? And we found some good stuff. Kirk got good with what was it, the crock pot? Remember the crock pot?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he'd have rice and chicken and vegetables and put it in before he went to work and eat the whole thing, and he really did good. And that's when he did all that great lifting at 275. That was when he had that really one peak year, if you look at the numbers.
Yeah.
And then he kind of leveled off and then started kind of decreasing, as it would. I mean, you can't.
No.
He never should have done that 1,000 for a double and train. I mean, it's great. I'm glad he did it.
I've seen every set and rep from that training cycle he recorded and he put that out, right? Have you actually ever watched that DVD? It's on YouTube now. Well, you're in it forever. In fact, I remember I was like, who's that guy always with you, man? He's like Marty. And I was like, does he know what he's talking about? And this is probably 97. 97. And he's like, oh, Marty's the real deal, man. Marty gets it. And I was like, okay. All right. It's the first time I heard about you. And then I realized I'd been reading your articles, but I didn't put two and two. And then it's like that Maryland pride after that. Oh, these guys are all from Maryland. But
which we were.
Yeah. Yeah. That training cycle was like magic. No missed reps.
Also, again, the fact that every week a little bigger, a little stronger.
So he did 640 for 8 in a t-shirt and shorts.
Yep.
The next week, I don't know, was it I think he put a belt on, maybe something like it. But anyway, in the video, then it goes to I think it's a few weeks later, maybe 4 or 5 weeks later, That's when he does the most impressive thing I've ever seen in strength.
Right.
With
Right.
just the belt,
Yep.
rock bottom 800 for 5.
Weigh in 269.
800 for 5.
Weigh in
Yeah,
269.
weigh in 269.
Okay. He
Yeah.
wasn't even at his heaviest. Now, in my mind, and do you realize that was 12 weeks out?
He hadn't had
See,
it.
that's when we shifted. That was the last no gear
Right.
week before we went into, wow, how did we used to do it? I think it was you put your super suit and your knee wraps and your belt on, but you wouldn't put the
Straps
straps
up
up.
or something.
I
Yeah, he
can't
went
remember something.
850 the next week with
Yeah,
belt
putting
and
the stuff.
wrap, and maybe a suit, maybe suit down.
Suit bottom. Also, he would wear a loose suit. He wouldn't wear the
Yeah.
the
Oh,
super
his suit
tight
was loose
suit.
anyway. Don't even talk to
Yeah,
me about that freaking suit.
I know.
My
I
suit,
know.
my
I
suit
know.
left in, I would bleed from
I
my
know.
suit. I bled actual blood around my groin. His, you could put your hand up the thigh.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
that much room because
Yeah.
he didn't want it to pull him forward. I'm like, yeah,
Essentially raw. Essentially raw.
yeah. Basically just knee wraps on a belt. Yeah.
Pretty
1,000
much.
basically. Yeah. And those were those
Yeah.
Titan ones. I wore Inzer and I wore Marathon. The Marathon and then Inzer came out with one that was just like, remember those marathons?
I don't go down this road.
Yeah.
Don't go down the super suit road. I don't even want to hear about it.
Go ahead.
You know what I mean? So anyway,
that training cycle. Let's get back to that.
That's pretty much the Kirk story. I mean, and then years later,
hey, back up. I want to know what it was like on a Monday night when he's getting ready to do 1,000 for 2 at the Maryland Athletic Club in Beltsville. Because there's a crowd. There's even like a little person.
Yeah.
There's girls. There's people from the street in street clothes. Because it was like a phenomenon around that area. Remember, man, no internet.
Right.
No, this was it. If you're into strength, everybody I heard of him, this guy I went to high school with stopped me and said, "You should see this guy, this Kirk guy from Crofton or whatever." And I was like, "Really?" Yeah. So Monday night, what's it like? Now all you guys training too?
You got to remember with it. You had a similar scene at Chalet's on the big Monday night because I recounted this in my book, The Purposeful Primitive, which everyone should buy. One Thursday was deadlift day. One Thursday at deadlift, I can't remember, it was 13 or 14 guys that had pulled 700.
Crazy.
Not all of them were lifting, but I mean,
I
looked around the room. Hey, there's Mark. There's that. 13 guys that pulled 700.
And not on a deadlift bar. They didn't even have
it. Was just, no. And it was just a Thursday. It wasn't like something special was going on.
Yeah.
Just a Thursday night training session, right? And at MAC, we had been there probably 4 years by that point.
Okay.
We left Chalet's, went to Maryland Athletic Club. Well, Mark moved the gym and it got, so we ended up, Maryland Athletic Club was much closer for me. And Ian was a friend. Ian Burgess was a real serious power lifter, Olympic lifter, national level, little guy.
Yeah. Wife too. There were some good lifters in there.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Susie Maroney or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but we had been there probably 4 years, 3 or 4 years by then. So at Chalet's, the same thing would happen. You would have like civilian people and people that weren't training would show up, and at Mark's you had like picnic benches along the wall you could sit on. Right. Wow. And the lifters might sit on it to wrap their knees.
That's a good idea.
But along the walls, you'd have just, picnic bench, right? And long and lean, so you'd have people, we didn't think twice about it. Just people that are just, gawking.
Yeah.
Now they were knowledgeable. I mean, they had to be. They knew that they were looking at because they were there. They were guys with tattoos, and I mean, and
so the word spreads that Kirk was going to do that.
Well, yeah, because it had been a regular thing every Monday. And of course, Kirk was like a magnet for the top guys. So that you'd have, in addition to Kirk, you'd have the top guys lifting with him.
Right.
So then you always have a periphery of people around the top
Friends
guys. So
of the
now you
friends.
got the second layer.
Yeah.
And to them, it was fascinating. And they wouldn't be there for the entire training session. They would kind of
Well, Kirk,
show up
Kirk's getting
for
ready to
the,
go. Kirk's getting ready. Yeah.
well, also for maybe when the stuff got over 800.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Up until then, everything's kind of warm up and, and not, but once it got over 800, because I don't know, let's see if we would go. So we go 255, 455, 655, 745, 835. Yeah, 835. Then depending on where we were, 835, probably a 900, throw the 35s on to like a 905, maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then and he might do as many as 5 reps with 900.
The
Right. I mean, that's worth seeing.
what I liked about and I taught my athletes that is how every set looks the same,
Yes.
whether it's 135 or
Yes.
855, and
Yep.
this the
Yep. Yep.
he's not like
Yep.
creeping into it. He's doing just
Yep.
like he would do if he was on the
Yep.
platform.
Yep.
And
Yep.
yeah.
Point that when
Yeah.
also real quick, Kirk I taught Kirk into making a comeback. He was older. I guess he was in his 40s. And
Oh yeah.
we did, I talked him into doing a raw meet
AAU.
weighing 240, and he
Yeah.
weighed in 238,
Nice.
and he squatted 826,
Yep.
bench 460 something, and deadlifted 775.
Was it? Okay.
Right.
Yeah. It was over
And
7.
we had to travel all the way to Laughlin, Nevada, and it was not an easy trip or a good trip. And he got a little thigh twinge on 826. We really had intended on doing like an 848 raw. No one could touch that even now. It wasn't 800 for 5, but he had only gotten like, I think, I don't know, a total of 4 heavy squat sessions. He was in a situation where he could only squat every other week.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he still had 826 and deadlifted 775.
Maybe that was better. Maybe as he got older, it was better.
No, he wasn't as hard as he was at 242 back in the day.
Okay.
But it's just how strong he was.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, he squatted 9 what at 242?
914.
Yeah, 914 back in the day, and he looked like he was a cut diamond.
Yeah.
Right. Cassidy one time told me, Hugh Cassidy, my mentor, he said, we saw Roger Estep for the first time. Right. And he was a short guy, but he had on like a sleeveless sweatshirt.
He was a weeder athlete because he was so muscular.
Yeah, he ended up that, but he was originally from West Virginia, brother.
Okay.
And he was a South talking hillbilly. He was a smart guy. It turned out he was a nuclear medicine kind of guy. Made a lot of money. They also think that his exposure to radiation might have killed him early.
Oh boy.
He had an early death. And he looked like incredible. So he was eating an apple. So we're talking to him. He's eating an apple. Later, we walked away, and Cassie said, "Did you see his arms? He was eating that apple." He said, "There was shit happening all over his arm every time he took a bite."
Yeah.
That's the way Kirk looked at 242, right?
Yep.
Just rock hard. Now, again, I would say his natural strength weight 260, 265, right?
Okay.
Now he'd have to calorie up to get up to that full 275. But I always wondered, what if when he hit the 800 for 5, what if we could have just kept going
and see what he could do with just a belt? Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
Could he? And I asked him that one time. I said, "Could you have hit 900?" He goes, "Oh yeah."
Because I don't think equipment helped him very much.
I'm like, what? You could hit 900 raw?
Yeah, think about it. 800 for 5 belt. Next week, 850 for a double.
No 5 for me has ever give me 100 pounds.
No, I'm saying then he'd have to
I'm not
go
Kirk.
to 850.
I am not Kirk.
Yeah.
Right. But man, oh man, could you imagine? Well, and again, he wasn't peaked out. In other words, what I'm saying is the 800 for 5.
Right.
If you would have if you would have tested him 4 weeks later,
Right.
would it have been 860 for 3? But now he's weighing a full 270
Right.
or 275.
Right.
Yeah, I think he could have done 900 weighing it
Glad
a
you didn't
full
bring it up.
275.
He would have tried to do it.
No, because
Now
it
he
was
had
all
his,
about winning the worlds. And again, we was 12 weeks out.
you know, what was really interesting is that the scenario that he set up for himself was perfect. The job
Yes,
wasn't
yes.
necessarily stressful all the time. He
Yep.
was on his feet a lot. I remember talking to him about all this. He was on his feet a lot,
I,
but he could take breaks and he could
I,
eat.
I,
He could
I
eat.
think it kept him in shape. I think it kept him from becoming a fatty. I
Yeah.
think it kept him from becoming, because he could easily be going to 340 and
Yeah.
just been
He gets fat.
blimpy,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And the pizza and beer and TV diet, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't. He had to be. I mean, he sweated at his job,
Okay.
literally sweat. I mean, yeah, that kind of job, right? It's like, yeah, good for a young man, right? Little
He knew that
cardio there.
he would get off at a certain time. He could be at the gym at
Yep,
a certain time. He could do his
yep,
meals at a
yep,
certain time. So really, he was
yep.
like, what's the word? Monostatic, like a monk,
Yes,
like
like
a
a
monk.
monastery. He was. Yes, that's
Yeah,
right.
for
That's
like 10
exactly right.
years. So that's
That's
perfect.
right.
So I want to win 7 nationals and 6 worlds. What do I
Yep.
have to do? This is exactly what you have to do. You know,
And I will live the life of a monk. What does
and
that
no
mean?
limitations. You know,
It
no nothing,
means,
no responsibilities except basically to your job and yourself.
and you're lifting.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
Your lifting comes first, and the job is an outgrowth of what is conducive to the lifting. You can't work a job that prevents the lifting. You have to make enough money to support yourself. So that's that criterion. In addition, you have to be stress free. You can't be fighting and bitching
Right.
and stressing all the time. So no women, no
Yeah.
pets, nothing came before the quest. He was on a quest,
Yeah.
a
Very
10-year
similar to Dorian
quest.
Yates. Very similar to Yates, except Yates
I,
didn't have to work
I
the
think
job.
I think it'd be similar to anybody if they want to be a world champion. And I'm talking a minor sport. We're not talking, the baseball, football, basketball, where they identify the prospects at age 14.
Right.
That's a different world. But I'm talking about these sports like, I don't know, you're a racquetball player or you're anything you're really good at. You're going to need 10 years and you're going to
Right.
need a lot of years at high level competition. See, that's the thing with Kirk.
Yeah.
It's one thing to fool around in the local meets and the YMCA meets and the meets in your neighborhood and that kind of stuff. But you start traveling to the nationals, particularly if it's a big nationals, and it's an unnerving thing for young lifters.
Yeah.
They get a little freaked out when they see.
Guys
I
that
got a I got some shock treatment. When I went to my first nationals backstage, and I'm looking around and damn, all the super heavyweights were my height, right? I'm like, oh man, you are a damn basketball player,
what were
Marty.
you? 220 or 242?
Yeah, 220, 225. I look nice.
Yeah.
I would have made a nice girlfriend for one of them, right? But I mean, I'm talking Doyle Kennedy,
Yeah.
5'11, 320.
The
Who else?
beard
Paul
down to a
Wren.
little bit. Yeah.
Paul Wren. You know who else is also always 5'10"? The bodybuilders. You go backstage at a major body, I mean, like an Olympia, a Night of Champions, an Arnold Classic. Most of the top guys are like that 5'9", 5'10" range, right?
Yeah.
It
So
seems
not
to
so
be that,
tall that they can't get muscle on them, and not so short
yeah,
they look
that
dumpy.
they look like
Yeah.
that. Anyway, we don't need to get on them. So that, and I think that the lessons from Kirk, I think are number one, his simplistic training works. Now he was more involved in Mark Chalet, who was the uber minimalist. But
Yeah.
Kirk was pretty damn minimal. He did not do a lot of assistance work. We tried to do leg presses one time, and Bob and I, it wrecked our backs.
The field
loading and
plates on.
unloading the
He would do
machines.
hacks. Remember, he
Uh,
did hacks for a while, hack squats for a while. I remember that.
Oh, and
No
it just
hamstring
was,
work. No
yeah,
hamstring work except
no,
that.
no hamstrings. Like I said, 3 sets of curls a week,
Yeah.
inclines. He got up to 440 for, I think, five in the, or 445 for five in the incline. Strict as hell, and he didn't care about it. It wasn't like any ego one. It's just like, hey, this is the weight I'm using.
Yeah.
How much is that? 445. It's like, wow.
Yeah. So squat
But
day, he squatted.
that's,
Squat day,
yeah,
he
squat and leave.
squat and leave about 10 sets total because he had to do that many to get up
Yeah,
to the way. Deadlift day, he did deadlifts and grip shrugs,
yep,
which is a shrug with a thumbless grip,
yep,
with deadlift wide grip, and you pull it up
yep,
to your belly button, shrug.
yep.
It's like a half upright row, half shrug.
And you rep it out
Guys,
until it pulls out of your hands.
you guys were working on his grip also, including
It's
upper body
it,
musculature. Yeah.
your finger strength. You keep going and going and going. It's coming out of your hands. Hang on, hang on. It's
Okay.
on your tips of your fingers. Hang on, hang on. Let it clatter down on the pins. We had the pins set
Yeah.
3 inches below where
Yeah.
you're shrugging. So you just let it come out of your hands. You fight it and fight it, you
Yeah.
fight it.
Squeeze and pause. Yeah.
Right. And then your traps are like come up to your ears.
It's a killer. It's a great
Yeah.
one. I did that with all my teams, and
Oh yeah.
it works your neck like crazy too.
And for them, that's like the great back finisher, like letting them finish a bench workout with arm work, right? They love arm work, right? To finish.
Yeah.
Then that's the best back finisher is the high rep grip shrug.
Yeah. But the
Yep.
other assistance was no triceps except close grip, no
Yep.
shoulders except laterals a couple sets. He told me when he did
Oh, he
242,
did laterals.
when he did no, I meant that machine, this thingy. He told me when he did 242 because I said, "How'd you get your back like that, man?" He goes, "Deadlifts," and then I did really strict, slow T-bar rows with decently lightweight and just squeezed it. So he probably did a couple sets of that. But the point
Well,
is,
all
he
right.
didn't
Now
do
wait a
a
minute.
lot of
Time out.
assistance.
Beep, 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 beep. Now,
Go
come
ahead.
on now. We got it. I'm throwing the flag
I'm telling you what he told
because
me.
okay, well, I guess I throwed it on him. Kirk, your back's not getting more definition from doing what
T-bar.
was it? T-bar. Your back is getting more definition because you don't have any body fat on it.
Yeah.
We all got ripped backs. If
It
you just
unearthed
melt the fat away,
his diet, unearthed his deadlift back,
yeah,
his
you
back
just
thickness.
gotta get off buying 4 flurries when you stop at wherever that one
Dairy
is.
Queen.
Oh, him and Bobby Myers used to have what was it? Whopper competitions. They'd finish lifting at Mac,
Yeah.
and then they drive. Who has the
Right across
Whopper?
the street, Burger King.
Burger King, and they would literally try to eat each other. We had a friend named Danny Pinkston, and they had a phrase that they would use. They would go like, if you really wanted to win the Nationals, you'd be able to eat
Yeah.
those last 4 bites of pie.
Yeah. How bad do you want it? How bad do you
Yeah.
want it? Yep.
And Bob would say to Kirk, if you want to beat the man, you have to out eat the man.
That's right. And Bob was always trying to gain weight.
Oh yeah.
Like 6'9".
Bobby wore a path from his apartment building to the Chinese restaurant. He could walk across like a wooded area.
Yeah.
And he went so many times he wore the path down.
He didn't need a
He
bush.
was he was spending $400 a month in Chinese food. And this is 1998, right? It's like, oh my God.
It's a lot of money.
Oh,
Yeah.
and plus the gallon of milk a day, right? That was that.
Oh.
And, and we'd get bags of protein. It would come in like 20-pound bags and it was unflavored. Oh, it was gross. But until you'd use it by the cup.
Yeah.
You'd scoop a cup of protein powder out and throw it in this thing of whole milk and just drink that, man. It's just like, oh my, right.
Just a little added protein. Just a little added protein.
And that's the kind of stuff Kirk would use to put when he's pushing his weight up, man. You just eat and eat and eat. And man, that boy could put away some food, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Kirk could eat. Oh man. You get him and Chuck Miller over here at the same time.
Gillingham.
You know, Brad didn't.
Dude, come on, no shrimp. Oh my God.
Well, yeah.
Gillingham ate the place out of shrimp. I was like, the Chesapeake holds no more shrimp. If that's where they got them, I don't know.
But that's because he's weighs 325 and he's from rural Minnesota. Yes, they get a lot of deer meat out in rural Minnesota. They don't get shrimp. So when he comes across shrimp, he's got to load up on Big Brad.
Yeah.
All right, Jimmy, have we worn this out? We've done good.
Yeah, I think that's great. We'll title it The Legend of Kirk Karwoski. You know.
Yes, and the quest. Oh, there goes a guy on the bike. His quest. His single-minded quest to become a champion. Also, the fact I want to leave on this is that man spent 10 years and he bought up his weak points.
Yeah.
He brought up the cruelest comment I ever heard someone make toward him, and was they said, "Oh, he looks like a muscular dwarf riding an ostrich."
Riding an ostrich. Okay.
Right. Because he was so bottom heavy, but he was muscled up top. So Kirk, over 10 years, he built his back up to where he pulled 825 and pulled 800 for a triple, bench 600 raw. And you know what? No more disproportionality problems.
Yeah.
His upper body looked so freaky. Pull up some of that YouTube stuff where he's standing there with he's got the blender full of Metrex and beer, and there's no legs. And he was gargantuan.
Yeah.
And his arms, incredible. It's like, you built those arms on 3 sets a week, and he's like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, but he did them strict.
3 sets a week with huge intensity. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up, that Kirk always, he didn't continually play to his strengths. He attacked his weak points. And that, I think, was the thing that's what made him the champ.
Yeah.
The real champ.
Well, because you have to have an open mind to learn. You have to.
I never thought in a million years that he would ever get that deadlift up. It's just, he wasn't built for it. It didn't look right. You know what I mean? And yet he did it.
Yeah.
I believe the bench, that kid's going to be able to bench someone. But the deadlift, and again, the whole physique, everything. So anyway, all right, we need nothing to Kirk. Kirk.
That was really good. Really good.
All right, buddy.
Wait.
Oh,
let's do a reading thing. What?
Oh, yes. Okay.
What are you reading?
I am rereading for the 3rd time Enemy at the Gate, which is a retelling of the Battle of Stalingrad.
Oh, yeah, you've read that a bunch.
Well, it deserves rereading periodically. I'm a sort of a Stalingrad, I study it.
Yeah. How many Russians died? How many Russians died? Million.
Well, it's hard to put an exact number on it, but this is a city of 400,000, which is about, that's like, I don't know what, Columbus, Ohio, or, you know what I mean? That's not big. Right. 400,000, that was the size of the city of Stalingrad. And 650,000 Russians, they think, were killed. Paulus's army was 300,000 hardcore Russians. They died, all of them, 2/3 of them in battle. They took 90,000 of them prisoners of war. Unfortunately, none of them made it to the end of the war. They all died.
None of those Germans made it either when the Russians caught them. Boy.
Oh, they deserved it. They also had Bulgarians, and they had Hungarians, and they had Italians, and they died. So it's about 1 million men died in a city and the real battle started, say, the 1st of September, October, November, December, January. Paulus, so 6 months, he surrendered in the first week of February. So the battle lasted 6 months. And what happened at the end was that Zhukov and Vasilevsky, the 2 Russian big generals, they snuck 1 million men up to within 100 miles of Stalingrad, and then took and surrounded it.
Really?
They encircled it. So eventually Paulus had to surrender. When he surrendered, he had 90,000 Germans left, and they were scarecrows by then. But that was to me, it was the pivotal point. Patton did great. When Patton when they finally cut Patton loose, he was easily, Patton and Zhukov were the best generals of World War II, easily.
Okay. Yeah.
And, but that Russian theater, that was a slaughterhouse. In Leningrad, they surrounded Leningrad for 2.5 years and starved 1 million people to death. They encircled it and just artillery bombed it and bombed it with planes and starved it. And 1 million people died of starvation.
Jeez.
Yeah. Yep. Warfare brought to you by Nazi Germany. And their goal was
that cost them the war too.
Should have. They were going to depopulate. What they were going to do is they were going to take the Ukraine north. They were going to depopulate it of Russians, and then they were going to allow Germans to expand into that area. They were going to use that as like, hey, we're taking over California, and all the Californians have to leave, and now people from Maryland going out to California, live wherever you want, take whatever you want.
Yeah,
that's what they're going to do, man. So that's what I'm reading. Before that, I read the Bo Jackson book, and I was kind of disappointed. I was kind of disappointed in him as both he was a chronic underperformer. He was just so genetically gifted. He never trained hard. He didn't have to. He was just born that way.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking that at some point he was going to turn around and get into it, but he never really did.
Never did, huh?
And he never, like, he didn't watch football. He didn't watch, but it didn't interest him.
He just wanted to play.
Yeah. It was like in lifting, he was like Ken Fantano. Ken couldn't tell you anything about powerlifting. He knew who Ed Cohn was because he met him. But he just didn't interest him. He just happened to be really, really good at it.
Yeah.
Fantano had the physique for moving heavy things short distances, just born to do it.
But you recommend that book though?
No, I wouldn't recommend it, especially for young athletes. You do not want to let a young athlete read this.
Yeah. Because
this is just an invitation just to blow off coaches and get away with missing practices because you're that good. And it's like, no.
Read about Herschel Walker or
Herschel had his weirdities too.
But he actually worked out though. I mean, not in the weight room too much.
He was the other way. He was the obsessive compulsive.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. So how about you, sir? What is it that you're reading?
I just read that one book, and now the name's escaping me, but it's called Chaos. It's about Charles Manson and the CIA. So check this out. Now listen to this with a podcast also. Check this out. MK Ultra, where the CIA in the 60s tested LSD on prisoners, college students, and prisoners, college students. And there was one other group.
I might have been part of that.
Yeah, you may have. Prisoners, college students, and there was some other group, I forget. But Whitey Bulger was in Alcatraz, the prison before Alcatraz. He was part of that program.
What?
And Haight Ashbury, they did it on hippies too. Charles Manson, part of that program. Ted Kaczynski, part of that program.
All right.
So anyway, that's what the book was about, Manson and all that. And that was when you were coming up. That was your
man.
Days, brother.
I was in.
Did you ever go to Haight Ashbury?
Yeah, I was in Berkeley, California when the Manson murders occurred.
You're kidding.
Yeah. But that was down south. That was in LA. That was in the LA area.
Yeah.
Yeah, I lived in Portland for 2 years. I was hitchhiked across the country 3 times.
Well, we got to talk about that. We'll talk about a whole nother episode. And then I'm reading this.
What's that?
Mr. America.
Oh, I thought it was Iggy Pop.
The hell? So this is fascinating, this book. It's this French guy. and he starts lifting and gets a personal trainer. The personal trainer is like a lifting historian. So he starts talking about different methods of training and starts talking about Arthur Jones and Mike Menser. And then he mentions how Menser's life went and all that stuff. And the guy's like, knows nothing about anything. The guy's like, really? But he's a journalist. So he starts researching
Oh, the
Menser's
Menser
life.
brothers.
Yeah. But it's not, and he wrote it as a novel. He wrote it as a novel, but he used all this research and stuff. And the interesting thing is that the path of Menser takes him to York as a young kid, takes him to working for Doc Ziegler at 15.
Wow.
Yes.
Doc Ziegler was the guy who basically invented Diana
Ball. And so Menser has made it known at York, because he used to drive there from Freda, Pennsylvania, that he wanted to gain 50 pounds in 6 months. So Ziegler hears this, because Ziegler's helping all the lifters there with
Bill March.
Yeah. Yes. And he says, come to my office
in Albany, Maryland.
Yep, from
right up the street from where I lived.
And he says
5 miles from where I grew up.
And he gives Menser at 15 D-ball. So Menser works for him in a lab coat. Him and Ray both worked for Ziegler. Ziegler was a wild man, would drink all night and stay out all night. He was crazy, but he was a smart guy. So it rolls through that. It rolls through him at the University of Maryland and working at Andrews Air Force Base, and it rolls through meeting Arnold and his first article where he says, I'm going to be better than Arnold in a year. And Arnold goes crazy, throws the magazine, talks about Arnold's drug use. Oh man, you got it. Mr. America by Nicholas Chemla. That's what's coming for you in the mail. It's probably in your mailbox.
Oh, God, you ruined the surprise.
I know, man, but
why do you do that?
I don't know.
You always do that. You
rewind
everything.
Pretend I didn't say it, but
all right, now look.
Yeah.
Did they talk about when he trained at Spartan, when he was did they talk about when he was stationed at Andrews Air Force Base?
Yes. They didn't mention the name of the gym, but yes.
Okay. Yes. Because that was a pretty critical time in his life.
Yeah.
That was his stability. Right. Did they mention that he used to diet? He used to fast every Monday?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't think so.
That was his thing. And his girlfriend was Kathy. What was her name?
Kathy Gelfo.
Yeah.
That sort of caused his downfall a little bit. That with the 80 Olympia and all that was just
that was later. This was 70s stuff. Also in the 70s, his brother Ray had a pool cleaning business with one of my training partners.
No kidding.
Right. So so I got all the Ray Menser crazy stories.
Right. Yeah.
They had a pool cleaning business together, and I believe he was living with Mike. We would see Mike training at Spartan. That was back in the days when you used to have to sit in the floor to do lat pull downs.
Oh yeah.
It was so primitive, right?
Yeah.
All right, that's great. Okay, well, good. Well, thanks for ruining my surprise.
Sorry, man. It's a good book. Right. You'll like it. You'll be surprised by some of the content.
I won't. I'll stop reading the Stalingrad book and start reading that one.
Well, you can always go back to the Stalingrad. You've done that.
Well, I know how it turns out.
That's right. All right, good, man. Let's do it again next week.
Yes, baby. All right, good one.
Sounds good.
We'll talk.